easier.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of words that they changed from that. Yeah, and so here instead of are for, they were for, and they're not. So I'll make a copy of this before we leave, and then we can work on it and FaceTime. Does that work? Okay.
I feel like I can see sometimes when I'm
Mhm. Well, I'm doing the best I can. I mean, and even if we need to put it in a totally different key, we can do that. What page are you on?
All right, let's stand up and sing just half a verse. I'm just playing. Let's go to page 23. There's power in the blood. Would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. On the second, would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Come for a cleansing to Calvary's tide. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. On the last, would you do service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. All right. I'm afraid if I say us bow our heads to pray, half of us won't wake back up. Dear Lord. You want to go back to sleep, you start praying in the middle of the night. I'm telling you. Lord. Well, glory. I thought we had a good service this morning. We had more people here than we've had in a while. That was encouraging. I told somebody downstairs, I said, you always get a couple new people come, you get 3 that leaves. And so I'm just waiting to see which one of y'all going to be still here next week or two. That's the way it is. Let me just talk with you for a minute, and then we're going to go home. 1 Peter chapter 4. I'm just going to read one verse. Beloved, verse 12, chapter 4, verse 12, 1 Peter.
Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. All right, you can be seated. You know, we said this morning that life is a bunch of trials. Trials and troubles. And what they're going to do is they have a purpose. Nobody in their right mind, no parent wants their kids to struggle. But understanding as a parent, we know that it's necessary because it's a way to teach, train. It's a way that I used to make this thing called, it's a way to make us learn or a way to make us lean. And so I said this one time. You know, Samantha's always been so enamored with horses and all that stuff. And when she was little, like this tall, she'd say, when you go to do something, she'd say, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. Knowing good and well she couldn't. Wasn't big enough, didn't have the capabilities, wasn't strong enough, wasn't tall enough. Didn't have what it took to do it. And so many times, I'd say, no, you can't. Just give it to me, I'll do it. And you'd almost see this disappointment on her face. Like, you know, she felt like she could do it. And, you know, if you don't let them try, they're not going to learn. There's nothing like hands-on experience. So a lot of times we have to deal with trials. But then a lot of times God puts us in them trials to learn, but to lean. And so I would sit back. I'd say, okay, go right ahead. You go right ahead and do it. You take this bridle or this halter. You put it on that horse, knowing good and well she can't reach the top of its ears. Knowing good and well she's not capable of doing it. Go ahead, you do it. And she's working as hard as she can, and she's struggling and sweating and got her tongue sticking out, biting on her tongue. Just try to do everything she can to do it. But she realizes she can't. But what she learns is she knows the one who can. And about that time, she turns and says, Daddy, I can't. Can you help me? And I remember that taking place, and I thought to myself, boy, is that just like me? Is that just like me? God allows me to get myself in some positions just simply because I know, so I'll know who to turn to when it comes time. We understand that trials come in our life. We spent last Sunday morning talking about it. You can expect trials. He says, think it not strange. They're coming. You can expect them when you do not follow. And when it's your fault. But you can also expect them when you're faithful. You can do everything right and still experience trials. He says, think it not strange that these fiery trials come upon your life, which is to try you as though some strange thing has happened unto you. I think many of us are willing to stand up and say, well, thank God I'm in this trial, and I'm going to see what I can learn out of it. No, that's usually a spiritual attempt to sound like you got it together. But let's be real. Most time we're praying to get out of it, not praying to stay in it. Why, Lord? I just being faithful. He said, don't think that's strange. It's a part of life. I'm allowing life to be that way. And that was expecting these. Look down at verse number 14. Let's see. Verse 15. But let none of you suffer as a murderer, or as a thief, or as an evildoer, or as a busybody in other men's matter. Yet, if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf. He said, you're going to have fiery trials, but make sure. Make sure. Not only you need to expect them, but you need to examine them. You need to look, say, all right, what's going on here? He said, don't suffer because you're a murderer. I'm not saying going out and kill somebody. He's using these as a type. Everybody knows a murderer is a bad thing. That's an obvious reason. You don't suffer because of just obvious things. Don't suffer. Make sure you're suffering. Make sure your trial is not that fiery trial in your life simply because it's just obvious. You was like a Jonah or a David or so-and-so. And then he used this term, or like a thief. Of all the things that you could put in here, he goes a murderer and a thief. Well, what's a thief? Well, if a murderer is the obvious, then a thief would be the obscure. He's in and out before you know it. In other words, it may not be obvious to everybody else, but it is to you. If somebody comes in and robs your house, I won't know it. Nobody might know it unless you tell them, but you will know it. If you are in these trials, if you're dealing with these fiery trials, examine. Make sure it's not something in your life for obvious reasons. Make sure it ain't something in your life for obscure reasons. Then he uses this illustration, or as a evil doer. Somebody that is always going in the opposite direction. Make sure it's not for opposite reasons. Make sure it's not for absolutely going against what God says. Then he uses this typology as a busybody in other men's matters. Well, you need to examine them because make sure they're not for outrageous reasons. A busybody is a meddler, always involved in somebody else's business. And so I think it's outrageous to get in the middle of somebody's life. It's ridiculous how everybody thinks your business is their business. That's outrageous. Make sure you're not in this fiery trial because of obvious reasons, obscure reasons, opposite reasons, or outrageous reasons. Well, what do I need to make sure it is, preacher? Make sure it's for obedience reasons. What did he say in verse 16? Yet if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed. If you're gonna deal with fiery trials, they're going to be a part of my life, your life. They are there. Let's make sure. Let's make sure it's not for obvious and obscure and opposite. Let's make sure it's for obedience. You know, I don't know about you, but if I know in my heart that I've done everything I know to do right, and yet I'm still struggling or still suffering, or still in a fiery trial, it makes it a whole lot easier to handle. Because I know I'm right with Him. And I know what I'm going through down here. I have a different perspective when it comes to God and His plan for my life. Make sure it's for obedience reasons. And that's really not what I'm wanting to hone in on, but I did want to mention them. Now, verse 13 and 14 is where I'm wanting to get to. I know some of y'all thinking I'm not being very short right now. But he said, I don't know, this is just out of place when we read it, naturally speaking. Verse 13. But rejoice! Yeah, I'm standing in line. I'm ready to buy popcorn and Coca-Cola and enjoy it. Eh? But rejoice, insomuch as ye are partakers of Christ's suffering, that when His glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with not joy, exceeding joy. If ye be reproached for the name of Christ, happy are ye. For the Spirit of God and the Spirit of glory and of God resteth upon you on their part. He is evil spoken of, but on your part, He is glorified. You've got to examine these fiery trials. You've got to expect them, but you've got to experience them. Rejoice. Exceeding joy. Happy are ye. I looked at Bruce Friday and I said, I know we ought to shout about everything, but I ain't got a lot to shout about right now. I really did. I did. And sometimes, man, I'm going to tell you, shout's not there. Let's be real. Sometimes there ain't no shout. But he said, rejoice. Happy are ye. Sometimes I'm not very happy. And that's in a present tense. Happy are ye. Not happy you will become. Not happy you were, but happy are ye. An exceeding joy. Rejoice? How can I rejoice? I got this and this and this and this and this going on. How can I rejoice? Why or how in the world can it be a rejoicing time? Let me give you about 14 things. Oh no, he whipped it around real quick. He was talking to Trish. He's like, a rejoicing time. How can it be a rejoicing time? I see number one, because it can be a real time. Notice what he said. But rejoice insomuch as ye are partakers. You're not doing this by yourself. You're not doing anything God ain't already done. You're in this thing together. It's a real time. Here's the truth of the matter. Some of the most closest times you will ever have is when fiery trials. You can rejoice because they are real times. I'm not saying the mountaintop ain't real. I'm not saying the good times ain't real, but there's nothing more realer than the valleys. Because I tend, be honest with you, most of us are on the mountaintop a larger percentage of the time than we are in the valley. You would mostly agree. But how many of us sit around and talk about how great it is to be on the mountaintop and how wonderful it is? It seems like it's not enough. I tell you what, because it's not a real time. When you have to get in the trenches with God, when you have to get down where the rubber meets the road when it comes to faith, there's something about the realness that takes place in that fellowship with God. Partakers. It's a very close, intimate, learning and leaning and supping and holding and talking and walking and understanding and trusting and following, and a faithful time in the life of a Christian. You can have the rejoicing time because it will be a real time. Sometimes they don't always feel real. But he said you're going to be partakers. And because it's a real time, look what the verse said. It says, but rejoice in so much as you are partakers of Christ's suffering, that when his glory shall be revealed. Not yours, his. The rejoicing time comes because of a real time. The real time turns into a revealing time. He says, when his glory shall be revealed. Honestly, he reveals things to us in the times of fiery trials that cannot be revealed any other way. If he tried to reveal certain things on the mountaintop, we wouldn't get it. We wouldn't get it. I'm amazed at how the way we are. You see, we want God to replace our suffering. That's what we want. And we pray, God, take it away. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. God, take it away. Take the pain away. Take the hurt away. Do this and do this and do it, and it's all about taking away. But when it becomes a revealing time, it's not about taking it away, it's about transforming it away. I don't know what you're saying. That mama that's 8 months pregnant, and she's miserable. She's suffering. She's hot. Her emotions are going crazy. Her hormones are all out of whack. She's walking like this. She's got pain that she didn't know that she ever thought she would have. And then not only that, there comes that moment of labor. And that labor is intense. And for hours upon hours, that body is making its way to produce that baby. And she's suffering and she's hurting and bent over. And they'd say push, and she'd push an agonizing scream. And then begin to breathe and catch her breath in the moments of pain. But the moment that cry is heard, that pain did not get took away, it got transformed. And for what was very hurtful, what was very painful, turned into something very joyful. Matter of fact, she was probably just as sore after it, or hurt just as much after it, as she did before. I ain't never been pregnant and I ain't never had a baby, so I can't really speak on that behalf. And her body goes through all of these chemical imbalances as it tries to maneuver itself back into its normality. And that's and it's all, but none of that is the focus anymore. It's that little glory. that she's got in her arms. Matter of fact, that mama don't so much care much anymore about the way she looks and everything about her. It's about this baby. As a matter of fact, she don't even take care of herself probably like she needs to, because all she's consumed about is taking care of that baby. And so it can be a rejoicing time, because it's a real time that comes into a revealing time. Not to take it away, but to transform it to something else. I thought about another. There was another who hung on an old rugged cross, who cried, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" Who died the most painful death a human body could ever endure. And he could have took it away. He could have said, "No, I'm not going to deal with this no more." But instead of taking it away, he transformed it into our salvation. You see, he was so enamored, and Bible says that it pleased God to bruise. What? Because he wasn't taking the pain away, he was transforming the suffering into our salvation. It's a revealing time in our life. Paul had a thorn in the flesh, something that plagued him, gave him great suffering, so much that he constantly went to God. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Take it away. And he said, "No, it's needful." But he did say, "My grace is sufficient for thee. For my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me." He didn't take it away, but he did transform it from pain to power. Look what all Paul done. Most of us, if we didn't have those times of pain, troubles, and trials, we wouldn't be worth shooting. It's a revealing time. Look down verse 14. "If you be reproached for the name of Christ, happy are ye, for the Spirit of glory and of God resteth upon you." It's a resting time. How, preacher? How's it a resting time? I can't explain it. You have to go through it. To know that you've got the peace of God in the midst of a storm. You don't know that unless you go through a storm. You don't know that you can rest. What about our character, Stephen? Suffering as he's being stoned to death, when he should have been screaming out in agony and pain. No. He just looks up to God, sees him standing at the right hand of the Father. How could he do that? He could rest. There can be peace in the pieces. One more. Verse 14, the very end. "On their part he is evil spoken of, but on your part he is glorified." So this rejoicing, how? It comes a real time. A real time turns into a revealing time. A revealing time turns into a resting time. A resting time turns into a reflecting time. What does he say? He is glorified. perhaps no better example in the Bible than Lazarus. We know the story. Lazarus, Jesus, come quick. Your friend is sick. And he needs your help. And he tarries 4 days. Just long enough for him to die, have the funeral, and be buried. And Jesus, trying to tell his disciples, said, you know what? We're not going yet. Lazarus is sleeping. Well, if he's sleeping, then it's doing him good. They couldn't get it. They didn't understand it. They're a lot like me and you. We don't get it either. And Jesus said, I'm glad for Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad for your sakes that we were not there. But he said, you will see the glory of God. And did they? Absolutely. The Bible says, we're not turned, but the Bible says when he hollered out, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus come walking out of that tomb. I don't know how he came walking out of that tomb, because he did say loose him and let him go. Maybe he was mumbling and stumbling around. I don't know. But if you read after that, a whole bunch of people got born again. They got right with God. Why? Through somebody else's pain. Through somebody else's suffering. How, preacher? God got the glory. We're all not standing in line to want to be in this scenario. I get it. Nobody's standing there with their hand raised. But here's what I have learned. Where you are and what God has put you through, apparently God can either use you, trust you to where you are. God can't trust everybody. Apparently he can't trust me with money, because I ain't got none. And he can't trust everybody with pain either, and suffering. But if he can certainly use you. I wonder how many